The outsider's intuition. Zara Patel stood at the edge of the crystalline auditorium, her dark eyes scanning the assembled students of the Centauri Academy of Xenobiology. Among the gathered beings, she was the only one without bioluminescent markings, extra appendages, or morphing abilities. Just a human, with nothing but her wit and determination to rely on. The Academy's halls stretched upward in sweeping spirals of transparent metal, allowing the light of 3 distant suns to paint rainbow patterns across the floor. Around her, her classmates whispered in a mixture of standard Galactic common and their native tongues, their excitement palpable as they awaited Professor Nixus's arrival. Today marked the final trial of their first year, the capture of an uncatalogued creature. Success meant not just passing the course, but earning the right to join advanced field studies next term. Failure meant repeating the year, something no one could afford given the Academy's steep requirements. "Settle down, students," Professor Nixus's melodic voice echoed through the chamber as she materialized at the podium. Her crystalline form shifted colors with each word, a natural feature of her species. "Today's trial will test not just your physical capabilities, but your understanding of the fundamental nature of life itself." Zara felt several pairs of eyes turn toward her. She was used to it by now, the skepticism, the curiosity, sometimes even pity. Humans were considered a fascinating but primitive species by many in the galactic community. Their acceptance into the Academy was still controversial, seen by some as a political gesture rather than recognition of merit. The professor's form crystallized into a deep blue as she activated the holographic display. Above them, an image shimmered into existence, a creature unlike anything Zara had ever seen. It appeared to be made of living wind, its form barely visible except where it disturbed the air around it. Tendrils of semi-transparent energy formed what might have been limbs, and at its center, a core of swirling iridescent light pulsed like a heart. "The Wind Runner," Professor Nixus announced, her voice filled with reverence. "Discovered on the outer rim of the Andromeda Galaxy, these beings exist partially in our dimension and partially in what we believe to be a parallel phase of reality. All attempts to capture one using traditional methods have failed." The hologram showed footage of previous attempts, energy nets passing through the creature's body, stasis fields failing to contain it, even advanced probability matrices unable to predict its movements. The Wind Runner simply phased through solid matter as if it didn't exist, its form becoming more or less substantial at will. "Your task is simple in theory, though unprecedented in execution," the professor continued. "You have 6 hours to capture and contain the Wind Runner we have released into the Academy's biodome. You may use any non-lethal method at your disposal, but be warned, this creature's intelligence matches its elusiveness." Zara's classmates immediately began forming alliances. The Meridians, with their ability to manipulate gravitational fields, grouped together with the energy-wielding Luxarians. The telepathic Vrin sought out the phase-shifting Quantum Collective students. Each group believed their combined abilities would give them the edge they needed. But Zara remained apart, her mind already working differently. While her classmates focused on how to overcome the Wind Runner's abilities, she found herself wondering about something else entirely: why did it choose to become substantial at all? If it could exist entirely in its phase state, why did it ever interact with physical matter? As they filed out toward the biodome, Professor Nixus caught Zara's eye. "Remember, Student Patel, what others see as your limitations may actually be your greatest strengths." Zara nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. She might not have superior physical abilities or advanced technological interfaces, but she had something her classmates often overlooked: the human capacity for intuitive understanding, for seeing patterns where others saw only chaos. The biodome's massive doors parted, revealing an artificial ecosystem that spanned several kilometers. Within its confines, various alien environments had been recreated, from crystal forests to gravity-defying floating islands. Somewhere in this vast space, a creature of living wind was waiting to teach them all a lesson about the true nature of understanding. Zara took a deep breath and stepped forward. She might be the only human in the academy, but today, that might just be exactly what was needed. The Ghost Wind Runner. The artificial atmosphere of the biodome swirled with unusual patterns as Zara made her way through the crystal forest. Unlike her classmates who had rushed off in groups, she moved slowly, deliberately, her eyes focused on the way light bent and shifted through the transparent trees. A flash of movement caught her attention, not physical motion, but rather a ripple in reality itself. The Wind Runner passed through a crystalline trunk as if it were nothing more than a hologram, its ethereal form becoming briefly visible before dissolving back into the air. The sight made Zara's breath catch in her throat. The creature was even more beautiful up close, its core of swirling energy painting the air around it with impossible colors. In the distance, she could hear the frustrated shouts of her classmates. The Meridians were attempting to create a gravitational cage, their bodies glowing with concentrated energy as they manipulated the local gravity field. The Wind Runner simply shifted phases, passing through their trap as if it didn't exist. The Luxarians tried to track it with beams of pure light, but the creature seemed to bend reality around itself, becoming invisible even to their advanced sensory abilities. Zara found a quiet spot atop a small crystal formation and pulled out her datapad. Unlike the neural interfaces her classmates used, her device was remarkably simple, just a screen and basic scanning capabilities. She began taking notes, not of the Wind Runner's movements, but of the patterns in its behavior. Each time it phased through solid matter, there was a moment, just a fraction of a second, where it became more visible. Not when it was being chased or attacked, but rather when it seemed to be exploring. The creature would pause, its form solidifying slightly as it investigated crystal formations or patches of artificial flora. "Fascinating approach," a voice said behind her. Zara turned to find Thex, a student from the Quantum Collective, their form shifting between states of matter as they spoke. "Most are trying to trap it. You're just watching." "Sometimes understanding comes before action," Zara replied, not taking her eyes off her notes. "Have you noticed? It's not running randomly. There's a pattern to when it chooses to interact with our reality." Thex's form stabilized momentarily, their interest piqued. "We assumed it was simply evading capture. Are you suggesting its phase shifting serves another purpose?" Before Zara could respond, a commotion erupted from the direction of the floating islands. A team of Vryn telepaths had formed a mental net, trying to track the Wind Runner's consciousness. The creature's response was immediate and spectacular. It burst into a brilliant display of swirling energy, creating a cascade of reality distortions that left the telepaths reeling. "They're approaching this wrong," Zara muttered, making another note. "They're treating it like an animal to be trapped, not a being making conscious choices." The Wind Runner appeared again, closer this time. It hovered near a particularly large crystal formation, its energy tendrils extending to touch the surface. Where they made contact, the crystal seemed to resonate, creating subtle harmonics that Zara could feel more than hear. "It's communicating," she realized, her eyes widening. "Every time it becomes substantial, it's not just exploring, it's trying to interact with its environment." "But why? What is it looking for?" Thex had already drifted away, perhaps to share this insight with their collective. But Zara remained still, her mind working through the implications. The Wind Runner wasn't just a creature that could phase through matter, it was a being that chose to exist between states, and those choices had meaning. She watched as another group of students attempted to contain it with a modified stasis field. The Wind Runner simply shifted phases again, but Zara noticed something crucial. It seemed almost reluctant to do so, as if maintaining its ethereal state required effort or purpose. The creature appeared once more, this time near a cluster of bioluminescent plants. As it approached, the plants responded, their lights pulsing in patterns that seemed to mirror the Wind Runner's own energy fluctuations. For several moments, the creature remained substantial, engaged in what appeared to be a kind of communication with the flora. Zara's hands moved quickly across her datapad, recording every detail. The Wind Runner wasn't evading capture just because it could, it was protecting its ability to interact with the environment on its own terms. Each time it was forced to phase to escape, it was being interrupted in its attempt to what? What are you trying to tell us? Zara whispered, watching as the Wind Runner's form shimmered with colors that shouldn't exist in normal space. What are you looking for in our reality? As if in response, the Wind Runner turned toward her. For a brief moment, its core pulsed with a clarity she hadn't seen before, and Zara felt a strange resonance, not in her mind like a telepathic connection, but in her very atoms, as if the creature was acknowledging her presence on a quantum level. Then it was gone again, leaving behind only a faint distortion in the air and 1,000 new questions in Zara's mind. She looked down at her notes, a plan already forming. The key to connecting with the Wind Runner wouldn't be found in advanced technology or extraordinary abilities. It would be found in understanding why a being that could exist beyond physical reality would choose to reach out and touch it anyway. The answer, she suspected, would change everything they thought they knew about consciousness itself. Failed approaches. The third hour of the trial brought increasingly desperate attempts to capture the Wind Runner. Zara watched from her observation point as her classmates' strategies grew more elaborate and, ultimately, more futile. A group of Luxarians had created a dazzling web of pure energy, its strands pulsing with chromatic frequencies designed to disrupt phase shifting. Their leader, Vexare, stood at the center of their formation, her crystalline body channeling enough power to light up half the biodome. The Wind Runner approached their trap with what Zara could have sworn was curiosity, its ethereal form dancing around the edges of the energy web. Now! Vexare commanded, and the web contracted, its strands converging on the creature's location. For a moment, it seemed to work. The Wind Runner's form became more substantial, its swirling energy patterns clearly visible. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of trying to phase through the web, it began to resonate with it. The energy strand started vibrating in harmony with the creature's own frequency, creating a cascading light show that forced the Luxarians to break their concentration. Impossible, Vexare muttered as their web dissolved. It didn't just evade our trap, it turned our own energy against us. Nearby, the Meridians were attempting a different approach. Led by the talented Greyvox, they had spent the last hour calculating precisely how to manipulate gravitational fields to create a space where phase shifting would be impossible. Their theory was sound: by bending spacetime itself, they could force the Wind Runner to remain in a single phase state. Zara watched as they executed their plan. The air itself seemed to warp as they generated their gravity well, creating a visible distortion in reality. The Wind Runner drifted into their trap, seemingly unaware of the complex physics at play around it. "We've got it," Greyvox announced triumphantly as the gravity field stabilized. Nothing can phase shift within a curved spacetime pocket. But the Wind Runner had other ideas. Instead of trying to phase through the gravity well, it began to spin, its energy tendrils extending outward. The motion created a counter-resonance that somehow matched the frequency of the Meridian's gravitational field. Within seconds, their carefully constructed trap began to unravel. "That's not possible," Greyvox protested as their field collapsed. "It would need to understand fundamental physics at a quantum level to do that." "Maybe it does," Zara murmured to herself, making another note. The Wind Runner wasn't just evading their traps, it was learning from them, adapting to each new approach with an intelligence that seemed to transcend conventional understanding. The Vryn telepaths had regrouped after their earlier failure and were now attempting a more subtle approach. Instead of trying to trap the Wind Runner's consciousness, they were projecting calming thoughts, trying to establish a peaceful connection. Their leader, Syra, sat in meditation, her multiple eyes closed in concentration. The Wind Runner appeared to respond, drifting closer to their circle. Its core pulsed with gentle lights that matched the rhythm of their telepathic broadcasts. But just as Syra reached out to make contact, the creature's energy patterns shifted dramatically. The telepaths recoiled, their mental defenses overwhelmed by what they had encountered. "It's consciousness," Syra gasped, her eyes wide with wonder and confusion. "It exists in multiple states simultaneously. Trying to connect with it telepathically is like trying to catch smoke with a net." Zara added this observation to her growing collection of data. Each failed attempt was revealing something new about the Wind Runner's nature. It wasn't just its ability to phase through matter that made it uncatchable, it was its fundamental nature as a being that existed beyond their understanding of reality. The Quantum Collective students, including Thex, had been observing as well, their forms shifting between states as they processed the information. They approached Zara, their collective consciousness intrigued by her methodical documentation. "You see patterns we miss," Thex observed. "While we focus on the physics of phase shifting, you watch for meaning in its actions." "Because there is meaning," Zara replied, showing them her notes. "Look at these energy patterns. They're not random, they're responses. Every time someone tries to trap it, the Wind Runner doesn't just escape. It communicates something through the way it interacts with the trap." "What is it trying to communicate?" Thex asked, their form rippling with curiosity. Before Zara could answer, a new commotion drew their attention. A team of crystalline students had constructed an elaborate containment field using their own bodies as resonating chambers. The Wind Runner was moving toward them, its energy patterns shifting in a way Zara hadn't seen before. "Wait," she called out, but it was too late. The crystallines activated their field, their bodies humming with power. The Wind Runner's response was immediate and devastating. It released a pulse of energy that shattered their resonance, leaving them dazed and their containment field in ruins. "We're all approaching this wrong," Zara realized, watching as the Wind Runner resumed its exploration of the biodome. "We're so focused on capturing it that we're missing the real question: why does it let itself be seen at all? What is it trying to show us?" The Wind Runner appeared again, this time hovering near a patch of quantum flowers, plants that existed in multiple states simultaneously. As Zara watched, the creature's energy tendrils gently touched the flowers, creating a harmonious interaction that made both the flowers and the Wind Runner glow with increased intensity. "It's not running from us," she whispered, a new understanding dawning. "It's trying to teach us something about the nature of existence itself. And we're too busy trying to prove our superiority to learn." Understanding through observation. As the fourth hour of the trial began, Zara did something none of her classmates expected. She sat down cross-legged on the crystal ground and closed her eyes. The sounds of ongoing capture attempts echoed through the biodome, but she focused on something else, the subtle vibrations in the air that signaled the Wind Runner's presence. Her datapad lay open beside her, filled with observations that told a story few others had noticed. The Wind Runner's patterns weren't random. Each time it materialized, it sought out places where different forms of existence overlapped, quantum flowers that bridged multiple realities, crystals that resonated with specific frequencies, even the bioluminescent plants that communicated through light. "What are you doing?" The question came from Lyra, a stellar-born student whose body naturally emanated starlight. She had paused in her own pursuit of the Wind Runner, intrigued by Zara's stillness. Learning its language, Zara replied without opening her eyes. "Not through telepathy or quantum mechanics, but through understanding why it chooses to interact with our reality at all." The Wind Runner appeared nearby, its ethereal form casting shifting patterns of light across the crystal forest. Instead of trying to capture or contain it, Zara remained still. She had noticed something in her observations: the creature stayed visible longer when it wasn't being pursued. "Look at how it moves," she said softly to Lyra, who had settled nearby. "It's not running from point to point. It's creating a pattern, like a dance between different states of existence." The Wind Runner drifted closer, its energy tendrils extending curiously. Where they touched the ground, the crystal surface resonated with harmonic frequencies that Zara could feel through her bones. She opened her eyes slowly, careful not to make any sudden movements. All this time, she continued, we've been trying to force it into our understanding of reality. But what if it's trying to show us that reality is more complex than we imagine? The creature's core pulsed with changing colors as it approached, each shift creating ripples in the air that seemed to bend light itself. Zara reached for her datapad, not to record data this time, but to share something. She had spent the last hour programming it to emit specific frequency patterns based on her observations. You've been trying to communicate, haven't you? She addressed the Wind Runner directly. Every time you interact with something in our reality, you're sharing information about your own. She activated the program she had created. Her simple datapad began emitting a subtle harmonic pattern, matching the frequencies she had observed when the Wind Runner interacted with the crystal formations. It wasn't as sophisticated as the advanced technology her classmates wielded, but it carried something else, understanding. The Wind Runner's response was immediate. It moved closer, its form becoming more substantial than Zara had seen before. The colors in its core shifted to match the frequency pattern she was broadcasting, creating a synchronized dance of light and energy. Lyra gasped. It's stabilizing its phase state voluntarily. How did you? Because I stopped trying to capture it, Zara explained, maintaining the harmonic broadcast. Look at its energy pattern. It's not just existing between phases, it's trying to show us how different phases of reality can coexist. The Wind Runner began moving in a complex pattern around them, its energy tendrils creating intricate designs in the air. Each movement seemed purposeful, like a professor writing equations on a board. Zara adjusted her datapad's output to match the changing frequencies, maintaining the connection. The challenge was never about capturing it, she realized aloud. It was about understanding why a being that could exist beyond physical constraints would choose to interact with our reality at all. Other students had begun to gather, their own attempts abandoned as they watched the unprecedented interaction. The Wind Runner's movements became more elaborate, its energy patterns forming shapes that seemed to defy the normal laws of physics. It's teaching us, Thex observed, their quantum form shifting in response to the display. Not just about phase shifting, but about the fundamental nature of existence itself. Zara nodded, her eyes fixed on the beautiful and impossible being before her. We thought we needed to prove our superiority by capturing it. But it was waiting for us to be humble enough to learn from it instead. The Wind Runner's core pulsed with what seemed like approval, its form now fully visible and stable. It hadn't been caught or contained, it had chosen to reveal itself fully once it found someone willing to understand rather than dominate. Sometimes, Zara said, thinking of Professor Nixus's words about limitations becoming strengths, not having advanced abilities means you have to look deeper, understand better. Maybe that's exactly what was needed here. The bridge between worlds. Professor Nixus materialized in the crystal clearing, her crystalline form refracting the light from the Wind Runner's ethereal display. The sight before her was unprecedented, a being known for its inability to be contained was voluntarily maintaining a stable form, engaged in complex patterns of communication with a human student using nothing more advanced than a basic datapad. Remarkable, the professor said, her form shifting through shades of deep blue and violet. In all our attempts to study the Wind Runners, we never considered that capture might not be the answer. Zara stood slowly, maintaining the harmonic frequency that had helped establish the connection. The Wind Runner moved with her, its energy tendrils creating intricate patterns that seemed to map the space between realities. It's been trying to teach us all along, Zara explained, her voice filled with wonder. Every time it phased through matter or evaded our traps, it wasn't just running away, it was demonstrating something fundamental about the nature of existence. The Wind Runner's core pulsed in what seemed like agreement, its colors shifting to create three-dimensional patterns in the air. Through her datapad, Zara had been recording these patterns, and now she understood their significance. Look, she said, projecting her findings. These aren't random energy fluctuations. They're diagrams, mathematical representations of how different phases of reality intersect. The Wind Runner isn't just capable of moving between phases, it understands the underlying structure of reality itself. Professor Nixis moved closer, her crystalline body resonating with the Wind Runner's frequencies. And you decoded this without any advanced sensory abilities or quantum interfaces. How? Because sometimes the most advanced technology can blind us to simple truths, Zara replied. Everyone else was so focused on how to contain or control the Wind Runner, they missed what it was trying to show us. It didn't need to be captured, it needed to be understood. The gathered students watched in amazement as the Wind Runner began a new series of movements, its form shifting between states in a carefully choreographed demonstration. Through her datapad, Zara translated the patterns into mathematical equations that appeared in the air. It's showing us how consciousness itself can exist across multiple phases of reality, Thex realized, their quantum form rippling with excitement. This could revolutionize our understanding of existence. The Wind Runner descended to hover directly in front of Zara, its core pulsing with colors that seemed to reach beyond the visible spectrum. Through their established connection, she felt rather than heard its message, a complex understanding of how different forms of life could bridge the gaps between realities. That's why the Academy brought it here, she said, looking at Professor Nixis. Not just to test our abilities, but because it wanted to teach us. We just needed to be ready to learn. The professor's form crystallized into a pattern Zara had never seen before, one that seemed to mirror the Wind Runner's own energy structure. The true mark of intelligence, she said, is not in demonstrating superiority, but in recognizing wisdom in unexpected forms. The Wind Runner began to move again, but this time it wasn't just displaying patterns. It was inviting them to follow, to learn, to understand. One by one, the students began to see what Zara had discovered, that the universe was far more complex and interconnected than their advanced technologies had led them to believe. Sometimes, Zara said, watching as her classmates began to interact with the Wind Runner in new ways, the greatest breakthroughs come not from overcoming limitations, but from understanding why they might not be limitations at all. The Wind Runner's form pulsed with brilliant light, its energy patterns creating a bridge between the physical and the ethereal. It had found what it was looking for, not subjects to demonstrate its superiority over, but students ready to learn from a different kind of teacher. As the trial's final hours approached, no one spoke of capture anymore. Instead, the biodome had become a classroom where physical and ethereal beings learned from each other, breaking down the barriers between different forms of existence. Professor Nixis approached Zara one last time. You've done more than pass a trial, Student Patel. You've shown us that true progress often comes from seeing beyond our preconceptions, even those about ourselves. The Wind Runner's core pulsed in agreement, its form now permanently visible but still unconstrained. It had chosen to stay, not as a captured specimen, but as a bridge between worlds, a teacher for those ready to learn that the universe held far more wonders than any single species could comprehend alone. Zara looked at her simple datapad, then at the advanced beings around her, and smiled. Sometimes the greatest strength wasn't in having the most powerful abilities, but in being able to see what others missed. In bridging the gap between the extraordinary and the understandable, she had helped create something entirely new, a way for different forms of existence to learn from each other. The Wind Runner's light filled the biodome, a testament to what could be achieved when understanding replaced control, and when the simplest solutions unveiled the greatest mysteries.